All right, well, we're going to call the meeting to order today. Mr. Coley, if you would note that all the commissioners are present today.
So noted.
Commissioners, we have several sets of minutes to approve, and the first set are the minutes of June 21, 2018. Do I have a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And I'm just assuming that no one has any changes to these minutes, so if you do, please speak up. We also have minutes from meetings that we held this week. I need a motion to approve the August 13, 2018 minutes.
So moved.
Second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And the approval of the August 14, 2018 minutes. Do I have a motion to approve those?
So moved. Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All right, Commissioners, the first order of business is Resolution 1383, a resolution providing for a purchased power adjustment for the intended purpose of recovering the cost of wholesale power purchased for resale to KUB's customers and replacing the existing purchased power adjustment as set forth in Resolution 1065 as amended. Mintha?
Commissioners, as you know, we have a purchase power adjustment for the electric side, and I'll recognize Mike Bowen, who's our Vice President of Utility Advancement, to summarize what you received in the white paper and explain why this is a necessary amendment.
Thank you, Ms. Roach. Purchase power adjustment, the purpose of that is to ensure that we appropriately recover our power costs from our customers. The original purchase power adjustment was passed by this board in 2002 after we entered into a new power contract with TVA that gave us, the board, authority over setting retail rates. The purchase power adjustment allows changes in wholesale power costs to flow through automatically to our retail customers. In 2011, TVA changed the underlying wholesale power bills to a demand energy type structure. That necessitated a change in our purchase power adjustment to allow for a true-up mechanism at the end of each year, where if we over-recover or under-recover our annual purchase power costs from our customers, then those over-recoveries or under-recoveries from customers are flowed back over the next 12 months. That's goes through an audited process every year with an outside auditor looking at it to make sure the balances and all the calculations are done appropriately. And it has worked for us and our customers well ever since then. I'll switch gears now and talk a little bit about TVA and their hydro. If you look at the pie chart on your right there, you'll see TVA has a lot of different sources of power. And each one of those sources of power has its own costs associated with that. Some are very high costs, some are less cost. In the case of TVA's hydro, that is a low cost source of power. The original TVA Act, and following that up, TVA board policy is that the financial benefit associated with TVA's hydro assets should be accrued to residential customers. In other words, residential customers have a preference for the low-cost hydro power associated with the plants. In order for them to turn that policy into action, TVA provides credits to us that's flowed through to our residential customers that lowers their otherwise bills. To pay for that, TVA, through us, has a small increase in non-residential rates to pay for the credits that they give. In other words, the credits and the debits, or the credits and the charges equal one another, so that the benefit of the hydro power flows to residential customers. That's the theory. Looking back over the past few years, TVA's recognized that that's out of balance. The amount of credits they're giving to residential customers is the appropriate amount, but they're not collecting as much charges from non-residential customers to pay for that. So TVA intends to rebalance this hydro mechanism coming up October 1st. They've also said that whereas in the past they went a long time between when they did this balancing, they said going forward we're going to balance this more frequently. If you look at our purchase power adjustment mechanism, this change in the hydro credit and debit mechanism is going to require changes on our part to our mechanism. This is the first time TVA's made these changes since we've adopted this PPA, and our PPA doesn't appropriately address this issue. So we need to make changes so that these hydro preference allocation credits and debits appropriately flow through to our customers going forward in time. As long as we're in here making these changes, we're also looking to do away with some wording that was transitional in nature when we first introduced the PPA, and also to clarify some terms. So we're taking the opportunity to do that as well. Absent us correcting this mechanism, instead of the non-residential customers slightly increasing, you'd actually see a slight increase in residential rates by about 0.2%. So it's an action that we need to take, lest rates get inappropriately applied. Resolution 1383 was prepared to amend the purchase power adjustment mechanism to accomplish those tasks, to not only flow through the upcoming rebalancing by TVA, but also future rebalancing, and address this issue appropriately from now on as they do this more and more frequently. Given this is a rate action, it requires 2 board readings. If it passes today, the next board reading will be in September, will take effect October 1st. So I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Hey, Mike, when you talked about KUB needing to make some changes or change some mechanism, are those just simply operating changes about how we do? What kind of changes?
It's really accounting changes, honestly. Okay. We're going to account for the costs associated with TVA's credits and their debits separately, and track those separately so that we know they're going to the right class of customers.
Just another question. As they're going back and truing this up, are they they're rebalancing it? Is it going to be like over the course of 12 months, or how long will it take them to rebalance those amounts?
Well, it'll take them 12 months to actually accrue the amount of revenue they need to have it rebalanced.
Okay, all right.
Any other questions? I would request a motion and a second on Resolution 1383 on first reading.
So moved.
Second.
Are there any members of the public that are here today that want to address the board on this resolution?
I would just briefly,
Miss, we're gonna, you'll need to, I guess, come up if you want to address us, because we may not be able to hear you back there, Ms. Humphries. And the same rule is in place with regard to addressing the board, your time limits.
just briefly, that the hydro allocation rebalancing is directly related to the grid access charge. So I would ask the board to inquire about that, if not on this first reading, then on the second reading.
Mr. Boland, do you want to talk about how those two relate, or if they do?
I am not aware of them being related at all. The TVA's board policy values the hydro preference at $250 million. They give credits to your residential customers of $250 million across the whole valley. That's the intention. And they have a debit or an extra charge for non-residential customers across the whole valley. They're trying to recover $250 million. And all this is doing is TVA is, if I think about it right, have been under collected by about $30 million or so from non-residential customers. They're going to raise that up to have the two numbers balance. That's what this is about.
All right, thank you. Commissioners, any other questions? If not, Mr. Coley, would you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Askew. Aye. Commissioner Hamilton.
Aye.
Commissioner Herbert.
Aye.
Commissioner Cannell.
Aye.
Commissioner Simpson Brown.
Aye.
Commissioner Small.
Aye.
Commissioner Worden.
Aye.
Resolution 1383 is passed on first reading.
Commissioners, our next resolution is Resolution 1384, a resolution authorizing the condemnation and the taking of permanent utility easements and temporary construction easements on two pieces of property located near Third Creek Road in Knoxville, Knox County. Nympha?
We're having a slight issue, I think, but hopefully we can get that resolved. From time to time, we need access to our facilities in order to do maintenance, et cetera. And that is related to what we're doing here today. I'll ask Paul Randolph to come up now that he has his slides, and he will explain to you why it's necessary for us to have access to this and therefore request condemnation authority.
Well, first of all, thanks for the slides working. I didn't have much to say without pictures, and of course I do have a map, so we'll get right to it. But as you're well aware, under the EPA consent decree, we're required to inspect and maintain our wastewater facilities. And in doing so out here in the Third Creek area started last year, we ran across two lines right near Third Creek, and I'll show you those parcels here in just a second, where we had very limited access. We actually placed the camera in, ran into what we call root curtains. That's where small roots start to intrude upon the line, and we can't move the camera up and down, so we are unable to complete our inspection process. And we also anticipate that has resulted in some blockages in those lines as well. So in order to get access to that, which may include rehabbing those lines completely, could be cured in place, could be pipe bursting, we need to acquire and have access to a 15-foot wide permanent easement. Of course, that would help us the next cycle around 12 years from now to also gain access and do any inspection and maintenance as well. And to facilitate the construction, we like to have this temporary area as well. So if we're going to acquire the permanent easement, we want to go ahead and get the temporary now, because we certainly anticipate the results of this inspection process will be some additional work. These two parcels right here, 1 and 2, there's one single owner there. The two lines are the ones in the red. This one's about 1,200 feet. This one's about 600 feet. The upper line already has a 10-foot easement on it. The other does not have an easement on it at all right here.
Can you orient us, Paul, about the
Yes.
streets, because I can't read that?
Yes, let me help you. Right down here, this is Webb Lane. That enters the west end of the Hoskins Operations Center at KUB.
Okay.
So this is to the north and to the west, and actually that dashed line actually is the property line. It also is Third Creek itself. So that's Third Creek, and this little piece of property right here actually has one of our water boost stations in there. So we pump water there. So the railroad portion here, I hope that acclimates you some.
Yes.
Again, these two lines were installed, this I think in 68, this in 71. The parcels were purchased in the late 90s, this in the early 2000s. This line right here is a new line, 2008, 2009 time frame. So we've been on the property and done work there on the wastewater system prior. So the two easements, same owner as I spoke. There's no change in the alignment. We'll go right back into place. Hopefully we can do some work there without having to do any open excavation. That's our preference. We began negotiations last year, and we need to get the condemnation authority to proceed. And that's what this resolution is for today. Again, Resolution 1384, authorizing for the taking of easements for these two lines.
What's the highest and best use of that parcel that we don't have any easement on? Is that prime residential property, or is it not really?
It is heavily wooded now. It is encumbered also by a KUB power easement diagonally across that same property. It's been, I think they've owned that property since the early 90s, and it's yet to be developed. So what's there now is some cattle and some other livestock.
Forgive me, this is a simple question, but we're gonna negotiate with the owner.
We already have.
We have negotiated with the
Got a
owners
price.
and offered them appraised value for the property.
Have they accepted?
They have not.
Okay. So we're still
They,
good.
they may still before we actually proceed with condemnation, but we have obligations to meet deadlines under the consent decree, and we have to get this done. So, we've got to move on one way or the other.
Commissioners, I need a motion and a second on Resolution 1384 on the first and final reading.
So moved.
Second.
Are there any visitors that want to address us on this condemnation issue, Resolution 1384? If not, Mr. Coley, would you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Askew?
Aye.
Commissioner Hamilton?
Aye.
Commissioner Herbert?
Aye.
Commissioner Cannell?
Aye.
Commissioner Simpson Brown?
Aye.
Commissioner Small?
Aye.
Commissioner Worden?
Aye.
Resolution 1384 has passed.
Yes.
Commissioners, in April, you heard from Gabe Bolus about some of the projects that we have in our system to try to improve reliability. And today I want to recognize John Gresham, who's our Vice President of Operations, and he's going to share some really good news about a project that just got underway.
Thank you, Mr. Roach. Sure, I can work this thing. Commissioners, the management of customer outages, service interruptions, unplanned events such as storms, and the daily feed and carrying of our utility systems is a very important processes for KUB. They're complex, they're relentless in some regard, but they are central to us achieving our vision of providing safe, reliable, affordable utility services. And today, I want to talk to you about our continuous process improvement history and our next major step in taking that improvement. That step is going to be a new information technology system that we're going to put in place that will leverage these new technologies we're putting in place. Before we get into that, I would like to discuss where we've been. So reflecting back to the blizzard, 25-year anniversary, right?
Yeah.
Reflecting back to the blizzard. Really a defining moment for our organization in terms of these processes, and an excellent learning opportunity. And since this date, we've really worked hard to continually improve these processes. So 40,000 customers interrupted, 8 days to restore. That culminated in some customer frustrations, right? And those customers' frustrations were internal, but we also had some, or external, we had some internal frustrations as well. But our customers, to give you an idea of what was going on back then, a customer had to call and literally talk to a call representation. And that meant busy signals, long waits, ultimately culminated in us being very inefficient in communicating the impact of the event and the restoration process. Our customers didn't know what to expect. In addition,
I was one of those.
You weren't supposed to bring that up.
I didn't have any electricity.
well, that was all Memphis' fault, I guess. In addition to that, there were internal frustrations. Our processes were very manual, very paper-based. And that meant, just to, again, give you an idea, a call rep would take a call, they would fill out a piece of paper, they would manually walk that piece of paper up 2 flights of stairs to the operations center. The operations center would take it, thousands of tickets, sort them manually, searching for your service problem, so that they could dispatch crews to resolve the problem. That was inefficient. In addition to that, we were very mapping dependent, as you all know. those maps were paper, and they were published once a year and distributed to everyone at the company. And you can imagine over a year things change. That caused communication issues, again, just complicating the frustration here. So an outcome of this event, and you can see a snapshot circa 2000-ish of the operations center there with the magnetic board, large monitors as we were moving to computers, and that unit in the middle there are actually a lot of paper maps that we could pull out and look at things. So we use this as a learning opportunity. Several task forces were created at the end of this event, tasked with improving what we do. So spinning forward, some of the first things we did was to apply new technology to improve the processes. So we actually implemented what we call outage management systems, which are computer systems that study data. And we did that in 1994. Back then it was on our centralized mainframe computer. And then again in 2003. And that's the system we remain on today. In addition to leveraging those outage management systems, we applied technology to take high volume calls. So we were trying to mitigate the long waits and the busy signals. We started moving our processes away from paper to computer systems. We created an online outage reporting deal. So now you could have gone down to Starbucks and got on an iPad and reported your outage without having to have a phone.
I wouldn't have been able to get there.
You and your chainsaw, yeah. You could. We also deployed some mobile computing. So we took computers and put them in the trucks in the field. And what that gave us, two central things it gave us, was digital maps. So now those maps were published every 2 weeks in this digital system. And the operations center used the same exact map that the field crews use. They're looking and talking off the same page. In addition to that, a really huge breakthrough for us is we began to digitize the work orders. So in 1993, during the blizzard, once we discovered what was going on, an operator would have to verbally communicate over our voice radio system the customer information, the location, the job orders, a lot of talking. Spin forward to today, the operator prepares all of that in the outage management system, drags and drops it on a crew screen. It makes them aware, alerts them they've got a job, and they've got all that information available at their fingertips. Not a word's been uttered. And that was a substantial difference for us because in significant storm events, noise was a problem. Noise is a distraction. And that was really a fundamental breakthrough for us, that noise really calmed the situation so folks could focus on what they're doing. Another neat thing we did, and I know you all have seen the outage map, but that's been really fundamentally an improvement in the way we communicate with folks. So a large event comes through, our customers can go to the web, they can see where our system's been impacted, they can see the progress of restoration. If you look at the map, you can select one of those dots and see how many customers are interrupted, what the estimated restoration time could possibly be. The media uses it to keep our community informed of what's going on. And then lastly, we enhanced our ability to manage our crews. And now an operator sees all of the crews that are working on one screen. And not only do they see who's working, they see what work's been assigned to them. And then lastly, because of the mobile computers in the field, each of those has a geographic positioning system in it. So our operators and our field crews can look at the map and see where other crews are. And that's a huge safety deal for us. And here you can see the modernized, so no longer the magnetic board, you've got the digital board, you can see more computers on screens, and you can see a snippet here of what our circuitry looks like inside the computer system. So, we started with technology, but we also leveraged programs and process improvements to enhance our ability to serve our customers. You've heard of each one of these in previous presentations, but I want to speak briefly to them to put them in context as they have improved and impacted the outage processes. So first and foremost is the incident command system. And that's basically a logistical approach to mobilizing our organization, leveraging as many resources as we can in a methodical manner to approach an emergency event. And at the end of the day, what this has allowed us to do is use significantly more crews in the field than we were ever able to manage before, which means we're getting more work done faster, which means we're restoring our customers quicker. We've used these processes for years now. They've become a part of our DNA. It's not even a second thought when an event's getting ready to occur. We go into this mode very quickly. It's been helpful. The second one you see there, you hear about a lot, right? Century 2. That's our asset renewal programs. And the outcome for the outage processes is we've been at this for a number of years. We've replaced a lot of assets. Well, those assets are stronger. They're newer. They're more resilient. They are able to withstand significant weather events. And what that has done, pardon me, has really mitigated and reduced the damage that we experience during large events. And so we used to talk in ways of, in '93, we're having to rebuild our system because of the blizzard. Everything was knocked down, broken. We're having to rebuild. Now we don't talk rebuild, we talk repair. And repairs go very quickly. So we're not breaking poles, wires not on the ground as often as it used to be. In a very similar manner, our vegetation management has had the same exact effect. So we're about to finish up our third cycle through our system, and we're on a 3 to 5 year cycle depending on where we're at in our system. And that work has moved vegetation away from our assets. And again, when significant weather comes through, much less damage, much less impact, means quicker restoration. And then lastly, two of the driving reasons we're doing this project is our grid modernization efforts. And that's our advanced meters and our automatic smart switches out in the field. And these are technology and programs combined together. We've begun both of those. This IT project is planned to come into play as those things finalize deployment. And where they're going to help us is we're going to get much more timely data, accurate data, to ingest into this new system to produce information for us that gets our crews to where they need to be, respond and manage our system more appropriately. So the chart at the bottom, you've seen this before. It's really intended to demonstrate our improvement over the years. So you see the blizzard of '93 there, 40,000 customers, 8 days to restore. Significant hailstorm in 2011, you'll remember that if your car was outside. 75,000 customers impacted, 7 days to restore. June 2011, our high water mark, 2 significant events back to back. Something I can't even imagine, 127,000 of our customers out of service, 7 days to restore. And then the final 2 storms you see there, smaller in magnitude than those, but larger than the blizzard, and both of those restored in less than 3 days. And a point of note, July 21st of this year, we had a weather system come through, impacted 31,000 of our customers. We had all services restored in just over 24 hours. So we feel we're getting better at what we do. We feel this helps. If you look at the poles replaced line there, the second line down, the impact of Century 2 and vegetation management, I think, is becoming clear. The numbers of poles broken is reducing, and that means less damage. And replacing of poles is difficult during storms. So that being said, and continuing our legacy of improving these processes, I'm glad to announce to you that we're going to replace our existing outage management system with, let me see if I can say this, with an advanced distribution management system, ADMS. We've apparently run out of 4 3-letter acronyms. But we did an exhaustive search of the industry and the providers of systems a couple years ago. We went through a proposal process, and from that rigorous process, we have selected Oracle's network management system to be our system of choice. You can see a snapshot of one of their generic screens there. We also selected Oracle's implementation services to partner with us to put this system in. This project's going to take about 21 months. The first 12 months, we're going to replicate and move over all of our existing outage management functionality into the new system. And then the remaining 9 months is intended to begin the new stuff, the new functionality, leveraging the technologies. You can see the cost there. We think this is very cost effective. And I'm happy to announce this project kicked off actually earlier this month, and it's fully underway now. So what are we going to get for that? I could stand here all day and talk about all the benefits that we're going to get. I actually had a long list of those, and these guys made me reduce it for the sake of time. But there are 3 central areas that I think we're really going to receive benefit by doing this project. And first and foremost, we're going to leverage these new technologies. This thing's being put in place because of the advanced meters and because of the automated switching, the smart switching. And they're going to give us access to so much more data. These are we'll know what's going on with points out in our system at every single meter. And the differential here is, as funny as it sounds, our customers think we know when they're out today, and we don't always know when they're out. We're highly dependent on them to call and tell us. And when we have large events, sometimes we get a small sample set of calling and telling us, and sometimes that takes minutes and maybe hours to get all of the calls in, so we're missing some data. Spinning forward, when an outage occurs, every single meter that's affected is going to notify KUB virtually in real time. And this system's going to consume that data, connect it to the network connectivity, and begin to guide us to things. It's going to get us to that protection device that opened because of the fault, because we've got to go reset that fuse. And then more importantly, and the big difference is, it's going to predict for us where that tree fell through the line. So it's going to use the knowledge of the system and some algorithms, and that's where we need to get our crews to affect the fixes. And so by having that data so quickly, we're going to be able to respond better and build better plans. And basically, we're going to leverage data analytics to be better. Secondly, we want to enhance customer service and communication. So we've had an ADMS team member embedded with the customer engagement team for quite a while now, and they've been mapping out what our customers want to hear from us in this realm. And so for our external customers, we're going to allow them to subscribe to email notifications or text message notifications, and we can tell them when their service has been interrupted. We can give them a notification when their service has been restored. We may choose to allow them to know that a crew's been assigned to their work. There's lots of things we can do, and we think that's what our customers want to hear from us, is let me know what's going on along the process so I can make plans. So we expect to do that. Internally, we've got access to much more data, and we hope to share some of the event status and details. Ultimately, for my selfish benefit as operations lead, is get our incident command structure kicked off quicker. So our employees will be aware, they'll know what's going on, the various groups can rally around that, and again, we'll get started quicker in a restoration. And then lastly, and probably most importantly, we expect to improve safety. And we're going to do that in 3 ways. First, we're going to build a simulator, a training simulator for our operators. We're going to have a system where they can go in there and exercise and practice. That's important. We don't have that capability today. So we're going to have them run through routine steps and all the work we do to make our operators better and safer. So we're looking forward to that. Switching, not to get into too much detail, but switching for us on our electric system is reconfiguring how power flows to work around places we've got to work. And that's either for planned work or for unplanned work. But the act of doing that rerouting is very complex. It can take dozens of steps to do that. Currently, it's all on paper for our operators. They write it down on a sheet of paper, they have somebody check it, then they go execute it. In the new system, they'll select a device, they'll know connectivity, they'll be able to build their plan inside of the system, and the benefit for us is they'll be able to execute that plan in the system and make sure it does what we expect it to do, give us some quality assurance, give us some quality control, make us better at what we're doing before they ever execute a step in the field. That's going to keep people safe. And then lastly, and what's new for us is these automated switches out there. They are going to reconfigure our system without human intervention. And the act of doing that, this ADMS system is going to allow us to monitor and communicate and keep an eye on that reconfiguration in real time so that we can keep our employees who are out working around those devices safer. So in closing, we feel real good about this technology. We feel it's going to continue our improvement processes, and we're looking forward to serving our customers better in the worst of times by leveraging this. And we think it's going to leverage the new technologies we're investing in. So, any questions?
How are we paying for it?
How are we paying for it? This is a part of our IT department's budget. So we've been planning for this. It's been on the radar for, I don't know, 4 or 5 years minimum. And so it's always been laying out there. Our project management office, which manages our large IT deployment, this has been on their radar. I sit on that panel, so we're paying for it with our regular IT budget.
Good.
John, what's the timeline for implementation? When will this be fully operational?
21 months from August the 6th, I think it was, when it started. So then we'll probably have about 6 months of stabilization. So the team, the Oracle came on site about a week ago. And so the month of September is a lot of workshops defining functionality, and then we'll get started. One of the key things to know about this one is, if you're familiar with IT projects, the customizations are tough. We're going to strive to do this application with no customization. We're going to mold our processes to match industry standard, and what that'll allow us to do is continually upgrade and follow along, because we do expect this product to future-proof us. We expect to use it a long time, and we expect it to be ready for the new technologies that are coming down the pipe. So that's part of the reason we selected it, 21 months.
And we'll get it operational in parallel with the current system, and get out, work out the bugs before we transfer.
Yeah, I think the plan is in that first 12 months, we'll literally probably get rid of the old OMS system. We'll get the base functionality moved over. So in 12 months, we'll probably have the system turned on and begin using it.
John, you have the licensing and hardware costs combined. I'm assuming there's an ongoing licensing fee for the product.
Yeah, I could not tell you the magnitude of that. It's our typical Oracle. A lot of negotiations went on as we did this. We had a lot of Oracle product.
Are we entering into a multi-year contract with them?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
What made you choose Oracle? Are there lots of programs out here that do this? Is this their specialty? Do other utilities use them?
Yeah, there are a number of solutions here. Most of them are oriented. We do use this for all of our utilities. We spoke mostly electric today. But, Oracle is one of the best of breeds. And there were a couple other best of breeds, but Oracle was more advanced in the switching areas and the distribution management part of this, in our opinion. So we listed out probably 350 functional requirements as we were going through this, and Oracle was literally the one that was able to say, yeah, we can do a large percentage of those. There was another competitor that we liked a lot, but their cost was significantly more than the Oracle product, so they cut us a pretty good deal. And so it was a nice balance, but we think we've got all the functionality we need. And then there were some other products, like our existing product. We talked to them first, of course, and they just didn't have anything in their long-range plan to deal with the distribution management. And so it just wasn't going to be a product we could use in the future.
And one last question, second question, and that's about metrics. Will this allow you to track things differently? I imagine better, but is there anything in particular that you're excited about with this particular system that will allow you to get information that you haven't really been able to get as much detail as before?
Yeah, definitely the fault calculations that are going to lead us to where the real trouble is a big breakthrough for us. So we're real excited about that. That's not really a report, but it's data we're going to analyze. This application actually comes with a module that has a business intelligence module on it, and we actually had a meeting yesterday to start fleshing out, okay, we know our reliability reports we do today. What else do we want in the future? So we've begun to lay out other functionality, and we've got a session in September to sit down with Oracle, go through their capabilities and start mapping out. But we do fully expect to get much more intelligence out of the system, not just reports, and we're trying to become more proactive in where things are not working well. We use a lot of that data to place our smart switches now, so we go out and look at which feeders aren't performing as they're supposed to be performing, but we hope to use, and what I'm shooting for is to use much more statistically based analytics in terms of how our system's performing everywhere and make wise business decisions, maybe just not on the customer minute of interruption. It might be other components that we start filling in here. So that answers your question. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that.
So John, were you able to talk to other utilities who use this product in this manner to see what their satisfaction was?
They do not let me out much, so personally, I didn't. Members of the team did visit other utilities. They made a number of trips. The one we're most fascinated with was Louisville, Kentucky. They've got this product, and matter of fact, we're planning to go visit them again.
And they're satisfied with it and its functionality, and
yes,
they've done everything that they promised Louisville they do.
More or less, yeah. Yeah, they're pretty happy with the product. And that was influential as well as making our decision, was talking to somebody that's happy with the product.
Well, I think everybody at KUB can be congratulated for thinking of ways to improve our service to our customers. You know, looking at that chart that you had up there and contrasting, you know, 1993 to 2017, it's marked improvement. And I know just from a personal perspective, I think my response times after I've gotten a smart meter, as far as getting the power back on, has significantly improved. And I think just the combination of all of this stuff is something that we as customers may not really appreciate on a daily basis. But when the power goes out and there's a response immediately, rather than having to, you know, try to go somewhere and use the telephone, is really significant. So that's just sort of a group celebration for the improvement that you've made over the years. And I think I know I, as a customer, really appreciate it, and I think probably the rest of the commissioners do too.
I was at a breakfast this morning with someone who, without any prompting on my part, said, "You're not going to believe what KUB did for me. I had a leaky toilet. They discovered that the water was running. They came out, and they called me, and they came out and gave me a credit." And he said, "This is the doggonest thing I ever saw." And it just so happens I know a little bit about that.
And just the benefit of data. Yeah, we can see
Yeah.
that data now. And
Yeah.
Really like,
It's really great.
appreciate the kind words.
And Steve did.
Thank you, John. I think you've got a second item to talk to us about.
I do, if you'll allow me one more moment and change gears
Absolutely.
with you a little bit. I did want to bring you some good news related to our water system and its management and operations. And we got notified late yesterday, I think it was, that the Association for Metropolitan Water Agencies is going to give us their Platinum Award for Utility Excellence. And that's a good thing for us. So this award is very similar to the RP3 award that you've heard about in the electric system. And so it was a very rigorous application process and came down to a panel of industry experts who looked over our data, requiring us to demonstrate that we have effective management, continual improvement, and we apply industry best practices to the management of our water utility. So a lot of work went into doing this. We obviously did well, and like RP3, this is a testament to our employees' dedication to serving our customers, and it's a reflection of your leadership to allow us to improve our service through programs like Century 2. I know those weren't easy decisions. The Water Plant Resiliency Initiative you've approved, a leadership development for our employees, that was a part of this, and that's important. And then the programs where we give back to our community, team workers and fall time, all of that wrapped up into being an industry leader here. So we wanted to thank you all for your commitment and for allowing us to serve our customers in the way we do, and we feel really good about achieving this award. And we were talking in the hall before we came in here, and I think that now accomplishes an industry-leading award in every utility, right? So we feel really good about this. And we think this is potentially the first time we've applied for this award. We got the platinum level first time out. So we think that speaks volumes. So just a bit of good news.
Therefore, I'm retiring.
You didn't go out on a high note.
They better do as well from now on.
We only accept platinum awards.
We only take platinum, that's
We
right.
don't get platinum, we don't want
Try
it.
that.
I just want to add one aside comment, and I will embarrass him, but Ed Medford's sitting here. In 1994, he was working in the IT department, and I remember the blizzard, and I remember sitting on the floor and sorting the paper orders. And when we came out of the blizzard, we said, somebody's got to do something about this. And Ed took on the job of writing our first OMS program as an employee in the ISD department. So thank you, Ed. He's still here. He survived it. So thank you very much. I want to introduce a very special guest. Brian Soulsby's here. Brian, if you'll stand up and come forward. But as a way of introduction, let me tell you that the way I put it, Brian's one of those folks who got away. He worked for us in 2002 for a couple of years. And then he was stolen away from us to become the GM of the Etowah Electric Company. And then TVA stole him from there, and he spent several years there. And now he is in his first year as the executive director, is that right, of the Tennessee Municipal Electric Power Association. And what that is, it's an association that many of us belong to, and he represents our interest in many ways, in Nashville, in the legislature, TVA, and lots of other places. And it's about relationships and those sorts of things. In his very first year in this role, he has visited every single one of the distributors, which is a major accomplishment. And we owe a lot to Brian for what he does for us during the legislative session. There'll be a bill hit, and we'll call and go back and forth, and he's very helpful. He works with Ed on a day-to-day basis, and Mike and others. But we're glad to have him here, and I think he has some good news to share with us.
Well, thank you, Mr. Roach, and to all the commissioners, thank you for allowing me to be here today. Certainly, it's an honor to come back to where my public utility career started here at KUB, and it was a great honor to work here. On behalf of the association, first I would like to thank you, Ms. Roach, for your 14 years of commitment and dedication. I think your leadership can be seen as with all the programs talked about with Century 2, and I will also mention the APPA RP3 program, which is Reliable Public Power Provider. And KUB is at the diamond level. And being at that level, that's in the top 5% of over 2,000 public power utilities across the nation. So certainly that shows how your leadership has led KUB to stand out among its peers. The Century 2 program, I think, has put you in a position as you move into the second century, as KUB is wrapping up their first century here. I think y'all were formed in 1939, if I'm not mistaken. So in so many ways, you've given back to the community. But not only that, you've led by example. And I want to say personally that I took things that I learned as an employee here and implemented the United Way campaign at Etowah Utilities, and things that have never been done as such, because I saw your commitment to the community, which is the second reason that I'm here today. So, Chair Herbert, I'm honored to present TMEPA's Community Service Award in recognition to the numerous ways in which KUB gives back to the communities it serves. For public power, we go beyond delivering quality electric service by building and supporting the growth of a healthy community through community service. KUB does this in numerous ways, from programs like the Rounded Up program and the Project Help, which have contributed millions in support of low-income customers, as well as hundreds of all-time hours to employees dedicated to serve the local organizations, to the youth mentoring and development program that's been achieved through the Teamwork program, and of course your annual United Way program, which has contributed over $2.2 million over the last 10 years. So that's phenomenal, and it is an honor for us to be able to come here today and to recognize your commitment to public power and to community service. So Chair Herbert, if you would come forward, please.
Don't break the camera.
Thank you very much, Brian, for presenting us this award. It's great to recognize community service. We appreciate your organization and everything you do for public utilities and just supporting our customers and our mission. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Commissioners, I've got a little bit more good news, so we're just going to keep the good times rolling. I recently had the pleasure to attend the Governor's Environmental Stewardship Awards luncheon to receive this really pretty award, because some of these things you get are kind of ugly, and you have to kind of say, I don't know that I really like this one, but I like Brian's very much. It's not in the ugly category, but this one apparently is made from like recycled glass, and I really liked it. Anybody that knows me knows I'm a blue person. I have a bunch of blue glass in my office, so it's good that this thing is here, because I might steal it. But really and truly what this award represents is something that we worked long and hard on with a number of our partners in the community for efforts related to low-income weatherization assistance, including KUB's Rounded Up program and the Knoxville Extreme Energy Makeover. Our partners on this project include TVA, the City of Knoxville, the the Knox County Community Action Committee, the Alliance to Save Energy, and SEED. The programs were recognized in the category of outreach and education. As some of you here may know, these programs provided energy efficiency home retrofits for nearly 1,300 low-income households over the past 2 years, and education has been a huge part of the program, serving more than 1,700 people with workshops and door-to-door outreach. Education helps our customers served with weatherization assistance to better equip their ways of saving in an energy efficient home. I was honored to share this award with Mayor Rahero and our partners at an event on July 18 to kick off the TVA New Home Uplift program, which will continue to serve our customers in need with much more needed weatherization assistance. I really want to thank each of the commissioners for your support of these important programs, and the TVA, the KUB employees that really worked hard and made sure that we met our end of the bargain and that we were great collaborators with the other organizations, because I think we've seen in our community over and over again, by working together, we can accomplish so much more than what one of us can accomplish on our own. So congratulations to KUB for this award, and again, I think it speaks to the leadership that we've had for all these years with Mentha. Okay, the next important order of business. We're going to be talking about the CEO selection process. A very, very important task that we've been working on for a period of months. Just to recap, because I think we need to kind of appreciate where we've been, how we've come to today. On April the 19th, Mentha announced her plans to retire, and the board immediately started developing a public and transparent process for the selection of the next president and CEO for KUB. And I can't say enough about the dedication of all the commission members, because we put in a lot of work. Everybody pulled their load, and we really, I think, through this process have become a much better board. And I would have never really thought that that was going to be an outcome of this process. So I'm appreciative for having been through that journey. The succession planning that took place prior to any of us probably being commissioners really led us to make a decision to limit the candidates to those that were internal candidates to replace Mentha. I think that we all realized that there might be a possibility that we would go outside, but we would be doing ourselves and the organization's work in the leadership development process if we didn't look inside. And I'm so glad that we did do that, because we ended up having 4 absolutely incredible people that applied for this process. They shared hours with us. They were very, very vulnerable in some ways, and I think it was a process that I don't know that I've ever really been through anything like it, because the give and take was such that I really felt like we know much better through this process. And I guess the upside to this is I think that given our knowledge of all of the candidates, we're going to expect even more from you because we know what you can do. As part of this process, we took input from KUB's employees on what they wanted to see in the next CEO. And we were very, very attuned to that input. It was a really, it was a learning experience for us because the mainline KUB employee doesn't have a dialogue directly with the board. And this gave everybody an opportunity to participate in this process. And we really appreciated everybody that responded. We appreciated those responses. We met in a publicly noticed session on June the 20th to discuss the elements of the process. And that day, we reviewed the candidates who submitted applications, and we selected the candidates to be interviewed. We discussed the interview process in that public meeting and the schedule for the interviews and the draft questions that we intended to use during the process. All of the meetings that the interviews were conducted in were publicly noticed meetings. And in those meetings, we spent more than 6 hours interviewing candidates to determine who was the best of the best, because everybody was fantastic. And it was such a hard decision for us to sort of come together and discuss the various great candidates. It wasn't a process where there was somebody that was terrible and we could just kind of throw them through the side. So it was definitely a arduous process. And again, I want to thank the board members and I want to thank the candidates. This is a very tough decision for the board because this decision impacts not only us, but it's going to impact commissioners and customers to come. You know, one of the hard things about replacing or trying to succeed someone is, you know, you think, I've got to succeed Mentha Roach. And those are huge shoes to fill. But I think that the direction that all the candidates took was that they wanted to put us in a position as an organization to continue to serve our customers as best we can. And that customer factor was something that each and every one of the candidates emphasized. That was something that they were focused on, and that in this next generation of leaders at KUB, that customer focus is going to be front and center. We're going to discuss, I guess we need to probably have a discussion. I don't know if we want to just start off with a discussion about the process and the decision making. Okay, well, let's start with a motion then.
Madam Chairman, I'd like to put a motion on the floor, but before I do, I also want to say that this was a wonderful experience. Anytime you're looking at spending a number of hours doing interviews, and I've done that many times over the course of my career, it can really be a chore. But I think everybody on the board would agree with me that this was really a pleasure. It was wonderful to sit down and talk to such outstanding candidates. And I will say that we all realized at the end of the process, we had learned so much about KUB. And the whole process and all the conversations just really emphasized the fact that we have an outstanding management team. So thank you all for that. And I would like to make a motion that we approve Resolution 1385, appointing Gabe Bolus as President and Chief Executive Officer of the Knoxville Utility Board.
Commissioners, I know that we may have some discussion.
I'd like to start by just echoing what you said about the quality of our finalists. The biggest challenge we had was to take a look at what KUB's needs were now, at this point in time, in the foreseeable future, and match up the candidates that met those needs best for this time. At any other given period in our history or in our future, any one of the candidates might have been the right one to fill that gap. So we were really blessed, and it was a testament to our state of affairs at KUB that we did not have to go outside. It was a testament to Memphis foresight and beginning the succession planning program years ago in order to make sure that we had some well-prepared and solidly prepared finalists. I think all of us were moved. I want you all to know that all of us were moved by the commitment each one of the candidates demonstrated during their interviews, not only during their interviews, but throughout their service, their commitment to KUB. Every single one of them was customer-oriented first, second was committed to our employees, third was team-oriented, and fourth was forward-looking and forward-leaning. And I think the thing that impressed me most about all four of them was they said, whoever gets picked, we're on the team. That meant more to all of us than we can possibly say. I will simply close by saying I am more confident in KUB's future than I've ever been because of the leadership we have sitting at that table. And so I believe we've made the right choice. I certainly support the motion, but I do so with the confidence that Gabe will have an outstanding team working with him and beside him.
I have just a comment to make too. I'd say we're, as part of the process, we're looking for a leader, but we have lots of leaders. We have leaders on this bench, but we also have leaders over here that are continuing to lead this company at multiple levels. And that depth and breadth of knowledge, expertise, commitment to what this organization represents is impressive and pretty bulletproof. There was consistency in knowledge and comments and answers. It was amazing. I would say also it was one of the truly most amazing experiences and what we could gather as far as the knowledge about this organization than even being on here a few years. I mean, this was incredible for us as commissioners. So thank you all.
You know, I often say that one of the most important things, the most important thing that we'll do as a board is select our CEO. I mean, we vote on a whole lot of things, but this is the most important thing that we do. And so I don't want to belabor the point, but I will say, I will echo the comments of all the fellow commissioners that this was a wonderful process. We had great candidates, and it was a phenomenal opportunity to get to know a little bit more about you, and I'm excited for the future of KUB.
Any other discussion from the commissioners? Is there anybody from the public that wants to address us with regard to this resolution? Mr. Coley, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Askew.
Aye.
Commissioner Hamilton.
Aye.
Commissioner Herbert.
Aye.
Commissioner Pennell.
Aye.
Commissioner Simpson Brown.
Aye.
Commissioner Small.
Aye.
Commissioner Worden.
Aye.
Resolution 1385, appointing Gabriel Bolus as CEO, passes unanimously.
Commissioners? You may not be that happy when you have to shift chairs here. I'd like to recognize Commissioner Pennell to give us the nominating committee's report.
Thank you, Chair Herbert. The nominating committee met today to begin this year's process for nominating candidates for the commissioner term that begins January 1st. Board members are eligible to serve 2 terms. The application is available on KUB's website at www.kub.org or by calling KUB. Application should be submitted by 5 p.m. on Thursday, September 13th, 2018. Knoxville City Charter requires that 5 or more candidates will be nominated at the October meeting for transmittal to the mayor for final selection and confirmation by city council.
Is there anybody that wants to address the board with regard to that report today? All right. I know that there are a number of people here that do want to talk with us just in general or about their specific problems. We have a policy for those of you that have not come before of allowing you 5 minutes, and I do time, to talk with us. And I don't have a list of those folks up here with me, but if you'll come up and introduce yourself, and we will be happy to hear from you. So whoever wants to go first.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, Commissioners, for allowing me this time to speak. Congratulations to the new chief. This is my first time addressing this board and attending one of these meetings, so forgive me if I appear to not have, some knowledge about certain things that most of you already know.
Could you tell us your name, sir?
Yes, my name is Chet Hunt, and I live at 1548 Botsford Drive here in West Knoxville. My reason for being here is just to express some general concerns. I'm retired and on a fixed income, and but I'm very impressed with how sensitive you are, and the customer relations focus that you've expressed here today is also very impressive, along with that technology you're going to be employing. And I really appreciate the enhancement for communications. That's wonderful to hear. But I have some concerns from reading what's happening with your supplier, and I know those things move down the supply chain to the end customer, which is me. And one of those is I'm seeing a shift from the variable fees to the fixed fees. And that really concerns me because I also have an interest in what's happening in terms of climate change. I've had a lot of opportunity in my retirement to read a lot of the science and go visit certain places where I witnessed these things for myself. But moving to these fixed rates concerns me because it discourages efficiencies. Having a fixed income, as I do now, I've become very sensitive about our budget and where my expenses are and so forth, and how I'm going to be able to manage those. And being also sensitive to what's happening with the climate and the carbon emissions and the rate of carbon parts per million in the atmosphere right now, I thought, I'm going to really try to do something to show my grandkids that Grandpa really tried to do something to help them. And so I've been buying, efficient appliances. I went and invested in high efficiency heating and cooling units and so forth. But that gave me an opportunity to reduce my bill, become efficient, and to demand less energy and less carbon emission. So now those rates are shifting. I went down and attended the quarterly board member meeting of the TVA down in Muscle Shoals, and it was a unanimous decision to begin to shift those rates. And I see my fixed costs on my bill, so those are going to be passed along to me no matter what I do. But as those begin to increase and those variable costs to me are going to begin to decline, and my fixed costs are going to increase, it's discouraging me. And we're becoming inefficient, and to me that's a real concern. And I just want to express that here today. Climate change is real, it's bad, it's us, and I know there are still deniers out there, which just shocks me. But anyways, I wanted to express that concern and how it's going to end up affecting rates and how it's going to end up discouraging the solar industry, because I was considering putting solar panels on my house, but if it's not going to save me anything, what's the point? I mean, being on a fixed income, I can't do it just out of, having the concerns for the environment and so forth, but, economics is a very powerful motivator. And shifting to these fixed costs, I understand there's declining revenues and so forth, but there's debt obligations and operation expenses that have to be covered, et cetera. But I think we just want to be sensitive to that you know, how we structure these rates and how they're going to be passed along to you from your supplier is going to affect me and everybody else like me. And I don't know if you have a mitigation plan to address the coming impacts of climate change. Those are some of the things I'm ignorant of in terms of what KUB has been doing. But I hope we do, and if we do, I'd love to take a look at that. And I appreciate the opportunity to come and speak to you today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Next. Welcome.
Thank you. My name is Sandy Yarnell, and I'm here today. This is actually my first time coming also, I'm here today because we have a piece of property, and what we have found trying to get our property with some utilities, it is just very expensive. And I'm here today to find out if possibly today or maybe another meeting that I could attend to that would explain to me the expenses of why it has to be so high. The property that we're wanting utilities for, it's not inconvenient for the trucks to get there and different things, but our bill, what we will be having to pay is to us really ridiculous. And the first one that we had it, the gentleman came out with his, measurements, and he measured everything, and with an $800 discount. After the discount, it was $6,264, and that is a lot, for a new service. And then that was in, like I say, that was in 2017, and today, well, just last week, we've been trying to get it lowered to find out why that it is costing so much. And with an $800 discount, we're still up to $7,578. And we had went out and measured, my husband and I, and the measurements, the feet are not exactly, we're not sure about the measurements of it, but even so, even that is way too much. Maybe someone could comment on that, or maybe I could set up another meeting.
Ms. Yarnell, I think that's an excellent idea to set up another meeting to try to get the information that you need, and I'll make sure that after this meeting that somebody gets with you to set up such a meeting.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're quite welcome.
Do I need to stay?
If you would, we will be taking a break here in a few moments, and
Okay.
somebody will get right with you. Thank you, Ms. Yarnell. Ms. Humphrey, do you want to speak today?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Thanks for having me again. First, I wanted to say congratulations to Mintha. What a great example you are to women in leadership, and congratulations on your retirement. Congratulations to all of you all. Gabe, on your new position. Surely you all recognize just qualifying to interview for the position says a lot about your career here at KUB. Next, I do want to encourage the board to go back and do some review about the grid access charge and its relationship to the hydro allocation credit. At SACE, Southern Alliance for Clean Energy, we have done multiple open records requests And through those requests, what I've learned is that is one way that this has been able to be revenue neutral. And so some of those records that KUB provided were presented at TVPPA, and they were presentations directly from TVA, so you have access to that. So I'd encourage you to go back and review that before your September 20th meeting. And then last, I just wanted to share a brief story about, a personal story about energy burden and why I continue to be really persistent about it every time I come, and how it relates to our community. About this time last year, I was finishing up school at UT. I was working 2 part-time jobs. I was a full-time mom, and wasn't unusual for me to get behind on bills once in a while, but I was always able to make ends meet with no help, and I took great pride in that. I got behind on my KUB bill at that time because I was delayed on a paycheck, and I know there's a lot of other people in our community that live paycheck to paycheck. But as soon as I got it, I deposited it. I used my bank's online banking to pay it, but I came home and there was no power. So I called KUB, and I found out that it had cleared through my bank, but it hadn't been received at KUB. It was in transit. And initially, the only solution that was offered to me was, well, you should go ahead and pay the bill again, and when we get that, then we'll just credit your account. Well, of course, you know, I didn't have that kind of money, you know, where I could pay a double bill. And so, you know, I called my mom to take the boys. I didn't want them to come home without power. I admit I cried. I was embarrassed. I felt like I failed, you know, as a mom, let the boys down, wasn't independent, made a mistake, was too prideful to ask for help. The list could go on. I thought about when I was a little girl, and we definitely had an energy burden because I thought back, man, I can't let my kids come home to a cold house, because I remember as a little girl laying on a vent because we only were allowed to have power or heat on just partial time at nighttime. So we lay down on the vent and cover up. So just for fun, I decided to go back and look at what my income was. And just to let you know, I did get the lights turned back on. I paid an extra $100 and got the lights turned back on from a KV supervisor. And but I did think about, like, what about all the households that were way worse off than me? So for fun, I calculated what my energy burden would have been around that time, and it was about 12.8% to 13.6%, and that's about average for the TVA ratepayers. However, in KUB service area, energy burden can be upwards to 20%. So I just want you all to think about what that looks like, because a lot of times we talk about these percentages, but we don't understand what that looks like in the actual household. So to me, you know, working in the CAC office at that time last year, I watched multiple people come in to get LIHEAP assistance over and over again who are much worse off than me. So I want you to understand today that that is one reason I'll be persistent about expressing what energy burden is in our region, about why fixed fees are important and they can harm those low-income customers, low-usage customers in general. And I think that KUB can step in and be really supportive about those fees to help low-income customers keep those bills really manageable. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Humphries. Is there anybody else that, from the public, that wants to address the board today? All right. Thank you all for being with us today. Following the adjournment of this meeting, the board will have a lunch session across the hall that is open to the public, and with no further business, we're adjourned.